All right, welcome to the Modern Thought Room. My name is Jethro. This session is going to be about groupthink. All right, I'm pretty sure everyone has heard of the expression, but I think most people have heard about it in a more social context. In the professional context, it still applies, but it's overlooked, and that's one of the things I want to kind of break apart today. One of the things I think when we have these type of words, whether they be cliches, popularly used phrases, um, is that they present like a easy to use face value kind of context, right? So I could just go somewhere and drop the word or drop the expression groupthink, and a lot of people will understand what I mean automatically, right? The thing that we need to do, and a big part of what I believe we all need to kind of start getting back to doing, is going beyond, right? Just taking that same thing we all recognize and understand and going a little bit beyond, right? So again, this is the Modern Thought Room. Premise of this channel is to do the thinking that the day requires, and we're going to take a look at group thinking, right? So what does it mean to group think? Why do we kind of miss it or overlook it in a professional context? And that professional context could vary, but why do we overlook it in a professional context, but easily accept it and understand it in a social context, and kind of can, I don't want to say work work with it in that context versus kind of ignore it in a work context to our detriment when it does happen, right? So I have a definition, a generic definition. Got this from Google AI Overview. Pretty standard type of definition, right? So groupthink is a psychological phenomenon where the desire for harmony or conformity within a group results in irrational or dysfunctional decision making. Members prioritize consensus over critical evaluation, often leading to self censorship and the suppression of dissenting opinions to avoid conflict. All right. So, as I said, in a social context, we kind of get it, right? Somebody has a an opinion, they're a popular person, they have influence, so they promote a type of mindset or a type of expression or something, right? They promote something, and there are supporters, followers, people that subscribe to how they think, then go and maybe repeat it, reproduce it, right? So this could happen broadly. This could happen through social media. This could happen through a lot of different ways. But a lot of us know that this happens every day with people that we run into, right? So maybe you're at an event, a social event, and there are different cliques, right? There's different cliques in the space, and each one kind of starts saying, hey, let's do this, let's do that. I think this, I think that. And in groups and little pockets, everyone kind of unites on one thing, right? So I use this example. This is, I don't want to rest on the social part, but I want to kind of set how it's easy, right? You could be in a group chat, group situation. Um, there's a hierarchy in every group chat, in every group situation. One person promotes an idea, another person promotes an idea. Then, you have people kind of support who they want to support. And you say, oh, how do we end up making this decision when there was an alternative? Well, everybody actually likes, respects, thinks this person is the person that they need to side with, or they need to, is a good word for that, that they need to appease in a way. So there's some appeasement that goes on with group thinking. I mean, let me close the social part because that's not actually what I want to talk about. It's the professional side, right? So the professional part is what we're going to take a look at, and how groupthink is something that is overlooked. And what it ultimately does is it limits how teams can get more out of what they have, and how they can stay innovative and stay impactful, right? So groupthink in the work context is something that is very easy to overlook, and it is very detrimental because, again, we're in a very, very competitive climate, all industries, all spaces, and teams need to be producing and teams need to be efficient and teams need all of these things. So if you have ideas that are getting thrown away, not even brought up, there's some groupthink to the in professional settings and work groups and teams and things like that can even this is a good I'm blanking on some of my best words, right? Can even subdue some of those voices and the insightful contributions they can have, right? So we'll look at this because I think just making some of these types of changes to how people think and how thought is promoted within teams and groups and organizations and what have you, even on an individual level, can just bring about a lot of benefit, right? So first question is, or before I get to the first question, why? Let me get to the why it's overlooked in a professional context. And by professional context, again, I mean, it's varied, right? Two of the main things that I'm going to start right now, there are many other factors. So breathe. There are many other factors, but I'll go with one and two. One is speed. Two is conviction. Speed, conviction. Two reasons of the many that there are, but these are the two that I want to focus on right now. Those are two main reasons why groupthink can be overlooked, or group thinking can be overlooked in a kind of team setting, group setting, professional context. And excuse me, I'll just throw this in there as like a little parenthetical. Groupthink doesn't necessarily always mean something is bad. It just, in the way that we use it, it's often applied with a negative connotation, and I'm kind of continuing that by talking about the negative aspect of it. But there are certain situations where group thinking is good and it is helpful, so I do want to put that, but right, that's not the focus right now, right? Focus is being able to get more out of what we have by attacking this groupthink that does happen and that does um, set some teams back, right? Set some teams back. So I said there are two things that kind of trigger the overlooking of groupthink in team settings, professional context: speed and conviction. Speed is that people want things decided very quickly, and deadlines, fixes, things that are not fixes, constraints that fix how things need to go, processes need to go. Those are things that kind of produce this need for speed. There's need for speed that um, sometimes is, if you're not able to step back, right? And this is something, a whole nother thing too. If you're not able to step back and realize that, hey, right now, for what we're heading, the moment we're in right now at with this team, how we're moving forward, the moment that I'm in right now, the most important thing is that I stop doing and I start thinking. Many times you could end up looking silly because you were doing and you didn't stop to give yourself more time to think, right? You still need to do the doing, but when you don't stop to think, the speed of doing and the demand that you need to consistently be doing, that reduces your ability to see things broadly, see things dynamically, and see things in a way that's innovative so that you can, help the greater group come to some type of conclusion, come to some type of improvement, come to some type of innovation, loosely speaking. Okay. So, speed, what does it do? It makes people fall into the trap of doing without thinking. Not doing, like, not that you just stop thinking and go dumb. It's, you're doing so much and so quickly that you don't really ever have time to get a piece of paper, open a Word doc, open AI, and sit and go through things, right? So then when it's time to bring things together, you end up having to sort of abdicate, which is a strong word, abdicate, because you actually don't have anything ready. Why? Because you spent your time doing rather than thinking, and that's not, again, just on you. It's on the demand for speed in your context, right? So speed is one, and conviction is the other, right? People love people that talk with conviction, right? If you don't talk with conviction, people can assume one or two things, right? They could assume um, you don't know what you're talking about, or that it's not what you're talking about is not really how can I say it? What's the good way of saying it? What you're talking about is not really impactful. It's not really true. It's not really beneficial. It's not even worthwhile, and it's not worth listening to, right? So when you don't speak with conviction, people find it harder to listen, right? People should be listening. People say don't say irregardless. Let me scratch that. People should be listening regardless of if you're speaking with conviction or not. Listening is not a thing you can opt out of, whether somebody's speaking with this certain degree of conviction or not, and especially in team context, right? And now we're going to get to sort of one of the main culprits in this, and why some people who are honest don't just sign up for leadership roles, and the second part is sort of like the people that are in those leadership roles, why they need to step up to another order in terms of how they work with folks, right? Being a leader is not like community service. It's not volunteer. It's not, those are also things you should be doing with integrity, but it's not like a free thing to just sign up and do, right? So there's a burden on that, and there's a lot of people that actually, for one reason or the other, they don't, sign up or go and do that extra thing to get into leadership positions, because they know, hey, there are extra things in that role that I might not necessarily want to do or be responsible for. So how are leaders responsible, right? There are some leaders that are unaware, right, that they're creating this group think that long term and even over short windows at times limits the amount of impact that the team can have as a collective, right? They're the ones that are unaware, and that's the ones that I kind of want to focus on right now. Folks that are aware and are doing this on, like, not on purpose but intentionally, that's another case of folks that there's another type of development that needs to happen there, that's not my that's not my obligation to talk to right now, right? Right now it's folks that are unaware, right? And by unaware is they might, if you're leading a team in any capacity, you've either have tremendous experience in that space, or you have the requisite education to then speak to those things. So either way, you have the knowledge base already. What's happening though is the knowledge base isn't actually being performed because you're not thinking about it. Thinking is something it's a really like big thing, right? And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, you need to make time to think. If you don't make time to think, what will happen is you get caught out, right? What does getting caught out really mean? It's like, hey, you're in a situation, you just find like, man, I'm not getting the best out of this person. I'm not getting the best out of this cohort, right? And you look back and you're like, oh, snap. It's been like this for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months. Now, how do we pivot? How do we change so that we don't fall even further behind? Excuse me. All right. So leaders need to, right? And this is now I'm talking just strictly to the folks that are leaders, but if they were to be honest, they were unaware. And by unaware, I mean, the baseline of what's your responsibility, but in the action of it, in the speed, in the time, and the demand, and all of this, it is lost. And so you kind of like, oh, snap, I need to turn back and reframe right? Think again about how I'm going to, ultimately lead the team, right? So leaders need to moderate and negotiate intentionally, right? Moderate and negotiate intentionally. Why? To empower folks, for talent development overall, and to find better solutions. And I'm not even going to just say better solutions, to find alternative solutions, right? Better solutions is the end goal, but you need to have multiple solutions to weigh. If you're just landing on one, and that's the one that, you guys always, that's the safety net, that's the default, that's the where we go, how we land, that's risky. That's risky, especially in 2026 moving forward too. It's risky, right? You want to have alternatives, you want to have options, you want to have other things, right? So context, right? So how does this happen and what does it look like when it's playing out? Boom. You have a 30-minute meeting set up, or you have a group encounter somewhere, right? So let's take maybe say it's a coach that's meeting with the other coaches. Let's say it's a manager that has a team of 5 or 6, right? You guys have a meeting, you guys are talking, and there's some general problem that you want to solve, something that you want to move forward towards, right? Cool. As the person that is essentially the authority in the group, there's a lot that weighs on you, right? And this is my suspicion. I don't think many people will necessarily outright just admit to it, and it's a difficult thing to just say this is a truth. But my suspicion is that when you are in those contexts, unless you do some intentional work to think about it differently as you're going in, what will happen is you will already have your mind attuned to hear what is the right response and the wrong response, right? Again, right response, wrong response. So you're in a group, people are saying stuff, people are feeling things, and 5 things might just like disappear past you. And everything that lands is things that are landing as either the correct thing or the incorrect thing. And why this is problematic. Okay, this is, let me slow down. This is problematic, right? Because even though that may be the right process, that might be a right process, right? I'm gonna like whisper that it might be the right process, but the disregarding that happens of a whole bunch of other options in context is long-term dangerous and can potentially stunt the growth of those that are in the group. So that's why I say moderate, negotiate, because in order to cultivate talent that's, reporting to you or kind of working collaboratively with you, you have to show them, right, that what they think matters and it counts, and not matters and counts, and that it contributes visibly to an alternate end or ultimate end. Right? So if every meeting, every, gathering, all these things, you're listening for the right and the wrong, but you haven't figured out how to kind of bring things together, moderate the discussion, negotiate different perspectives, you are potentially stunting the growth and the opportunity that's there for that team or group to make an impact, right? And what's I feel for you, for you, myself, other people, like I feel for it, because it's like you can't necessarily assess it until like time has passed, right? Because you have to make decisions in the moment, and if you're right, you're right, and if you're wrong, you're wrong, because you ultimately report to other people, or if not and you run the show, you are responsible for the health of the business, the organization. So there's a lot of pressure. I'm not saying that I'm just saying that because it's competitive out there, we don't really have the time space to just be like disregarding options and stunting the growth of others that are in the group or in the team, right? That's not a that's not an option, right? That's not a good option. And if it plays out like that, business does well, all right, you know, so what? But um how can that kind of like how can we kind of work against that, right? So this is like, what is the solution to this, right? Because it sounds like you're saying a bunch of stuff, but how do we move against this? And I already kind of said what the actual solve is. Solve is change how you approach coming together as a team. Take time to think about how you think about the situation and how the people that are coming into the situation think. Set up ways or set up strategies, right? Frameworks, techniques to encourage, right, that dialogue so that then at end, it's not like, hey, everyone just went on mute and fed your idea and then everybody ran with it. And if it, was successful, we all cheer. And if it stalled, we all just say, hey, it is what it is. And if we want to kind of do that little bit much better, move that much more forward, right, we'll need some of those different alternate ideas and options, right? Now, because again, going back to the speed thing, because because we live in a like what have you done for me yesterday type of world, and because again, like I'm not saying any of this to downplay the urgency and speed and pressure folks are on or under, but this group the group think that settles in professional context because folks are unaware, it isn't a problem on day one, and it isn't a problem in the second, third month that are starting to notice this. Like, oh yeah, that call was okay. We came together about this problem. We landed with this. That's fine. It's efficient. That's what we normally do. Right? It's a problem when your competition is finding something that allows them to get ahead, allows them to step out, allows them to win more of the market, that whatever lane you guys are in, right? Become more competitive, more appealing. And that stuff, right? Where people, organizations, teams, groups find an edge, it's doing the main thing that everyone is doing the best, or finding a nuanced way to deliver something that others aren't doing, right? Doing things the best that everyone else is doing, that's a very tall order. And not not all teams, groups, organizations have access and resources to do that. But every team, organization, group has the ability to do something in a nuanced way that builds their brand identity and makes them very, very appealing and ultimately productive and impactful and successful, right? So I think I'll cut there. I'll cut there, right? So I'll cut there. But main thing, summary, back up. If you're leading a team in any capacity, try not to stifle folks. And if you see that there's a trend of groupthink in, not I won't say in your leadership, but in your leadership, just try to cut that out, nix that out. Okay. Thank you guys for your time. If you have any comments, questions, or anything like, let them be known. And I'll kind of hope to ideally address anything that comes up in another video. Thank you. Adios. Ciao. Peace.